Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday. If that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. And well, you can see why we live in Victoria, British Columbia. It's mid-January. Yeah, it's a bunch of junk on the boat, no doubt. And it's just gorgeous. If only I could just slip the lines and go for a little day cruise. But what are we gonna do instead of that? Well, we're gonna get some varnish on. But before varnish, because this sole has turned out way nicer than even I imagined it would, I'm gonna give it a shot of my favorite tung oil. Let's get to it. All right, then a couple of days to dry, and as some of you will have noticed, I'm happy with the result. It looks great, and perhaps, who knows, this may end up being the top final surface. At one point I'd been mentioning I would put some sapelli mahogany over the top of this, but really, will I? I don't know. I think it looks great. Anyway, what it does need is some protection, because this is going to be a wood chop this week or early next week, and I don't want to be gouging it up, messing it up. So I was going to put urethane, varathane on it, but because I'm quite fond of it now, I'm first going to give it my loving touch of tung oil, which is a finish that I truly adore. If you've been watching for a while, you know that basically it adds depth before the final finish. Of course, tung oil by itself is not a suitable finish for pretty much anything. But I'm going to give it just a single shot of tung oil, and what I'm going to use is this hardware store brand. It's actually circa 1850. I don't mind naming it. It's not pure tung oil. I can tell you two reasons. One, it wasn't nearly expensive enough, and two, it smells of solvent. So it's mostly a thinned tung oil, which may have some other stuff in it as well, probably some linseed. Anyway, the thing is, it's a good way to use it up because it doesn't have to be perfect down here, and it's going to end up being a satin finish, so it's a perfect way to use up this pseudo tung oil. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you too much of this, but it's going to look pretty shiny. Okay then, well, I like the look of that. Love that sheen. Oh yeah. Now, to be fair, this won't look like this tomorrow. Tung oil has a short-lived sheen, but the natural depth will live on when I put a top finish on there. And good morning. So there's the tung oil dried overnight, looking fabulous as always. So because I gotta keep moving, I haven't been able to use my office for days now. I'm going to throw on some fast drying professional varathane, which is a urethane. It's not a marine varnish. It'd be lovely to put epiphanes down here, but you know what? I don't actually want a high gloss finish, and I don't want the expense. Well, it's not really that bad, but anyway, varathane's going to be fine. I've used it on floors a lot, and I like the finish, and I just got to get something on here so I can start working again. All right then, so at long last, it's finally time to get around to starting to wire the boat. And so grateful that over the past year almost, I've had some very generous gifts through the Amazon gift list, which is really going to give me a leg up on that. So let's get to it. Here is the drawing of just the AC circuits. I don't expect you to be able to see this properly, but I'm just laying out and balancing the circuits, deciding which outlets, duplex outlets, are going to be joined together into the 8 circuits that are going to be on the panel. And I'm pretty happy with that now. I'll move over to DC in a minute, but let's get started with basically what I'm going to be doing here. This area here, which I consider my nav station. For those of you who aren't familiar where I am, let me just give you a quick tour. This is up in the wheelhouse, of course, which has its lovely new sole. In fact, this is the first time I've ever walked on it in shoes. And I have just below the helm what I call my nav station, which is a little office space, which is currently only mocked up, but it will be largely like this when it's finished. As a result, this area here will be the electrical panels. At least the low current electrical panels, like the big battery switches and that kind of stuff, will be down below here. But anyway, so it'll be all in here. You can see my current electric panel is a battery charger, 2 breakers, 2 AC circuits, and a bunch of extension cords, and 2 DC circuits, and basically lighting and bilge pumps. Okay, so this mess will be replaced with this mess. Anyway, so there'll be basically a panel that will have all the junction blocks, basically bus bars and stuff, with a hinge up cover, which will have the breakers and switches and things on it. So this is basically the main center for all the wiring. And all the wiring will pass aft, basically right underneath the deck, which is right about here. If we look at where this stringer is, let's go into the wheelhouse. That's this stringer here. And so all the wires are going to come through here in 2 holes, one for the DC and one for the AC, because you can't bundle AC circuits with DC circuits. So they'll run all the way along the frames here, just underneath the deck on the starboard side. And that's because almost all the loads, all the places I need power, are along this side. The galley's on this side, the bathroom's on this side, etc. The helm is on this side. So pretty straightforward. So they'll run all the way through here, and basically branch circuits will pop off from there. A lot of them, of course, will go into the helm. Well, not many AC circuits will. And then we'll carry on here into where the galley is going to be. And there'll be a few circuits here, of course. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. This bulkhead here separates the galley from the head, which is just aft of here. So I'll drill 2 more holes in that bulkhead, just as I'm going to do up here for the bundled AC and DC circuits. But it's not that simple, and I'll show you why. Some of you who know the boat will know what's going to happen. Yes, the head is wonderfully fiberglassed. So they're not going to pop out here, because this fiberglass is actually well proud of the frames, because you can't see the stringers in here, can you? So there's at least 1.5 inches of space between here and the frame. So I should be able to chase them through all the way through to the aft cabin. Now, no, it's not going to be able to chase them. So what I'm hoping I can do is drill holes in both bulkheads and then pass a conduit, a piece of pipe, probably PVC 1.5 inch pipe, that I'll then be able to chase all those wires through, because none of the circuits actually end up in this space, because this is a shower, rather not have any AC in here. Although I'll break that rule a little bit, but you'll find out about that. Okay, so now, eventually, hopefully, they'll all pop out. I really doubt you can see this. Under the deck here in the aft cabin, basically the same way they went in from the wheelhouse. Now, how do I know there's any room in there? How do I know I can do this at all? Aha! We'll enter the lapriscope. Yes, super handy little item. Picked it up on Amazon a couple years ago when I was trying to get at a fastener underneath the engine aboard MV Zephyrus. It's basically a tiny little video camera with a whole bunch of LEDs. And on the other end of this long cable is a Wi-Fi transmitter and a battery pack that lights up the little lights around the edge and broadcasts it over Wi-Fi to a device. In this case will be my old iPad. So I'm going to drill a little hole over here and find, or maybe I can get into this gap up here, except there's some more wood there. Anyway, I'm going to find a way to get in there and see if actually there's a clear path just underneath the deck that I can slide 2 1.5-inch pieces of PVC pipe through. Coming along? Okay, so I've decided to just jump to the chase here and cut the first hole, and I'll use that to run the laparoscope through. Make sure I'm far enough out that I'm off the frames, and off we go. I'll probably hit a fastener or two. Okay, so I've stopped cutting for a bit because I've just had the slightest little bit of white powder coming through here, which makes me wonder if I'm cutting into the fiberglass. So I may be a bit too close. Okay, so I've decided to employ some intelligence here. So I went into the bathroom, and I measured from the center of the shower knob, which is this thing right here, to the inside of the fiberglass, and it's 6 inches. So if I measure in this direction from the center, I'm already well into the fiberglass by a good 1/2 inch. So I was much too generous over here from the frame, and I'm only counting on 1.5 inches of room, and I'm drilling a 2-inch hole. So you can see I didn't give this enough forethought. Okay, so a freehand restart here, and we'll see if that's far enough over. Okay, whew, that's hot. Okay, here we go. So I'm still not quite on the frame, so I have a tiny little bit more wiggle room there, but I'm come up against something fairly solid here that I can still probably chase some wires through here, but it's not going to be as easy as I'd hope. Let's look with the laparoscope. All right then, here we go. So it's a bit fiddly because the focal length is very, very close. Here, let's back out a little bit. And there's another problem with using laparoscope is it's hard to tell which way is up. So if I come out of the hole, I can see that, yeah, okay. And I'll move on back in, and I can see down. If you see just a little bit of light down there, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, that is the hole that I've already cut at the other end. So as long as I can see a straight path through. Okay, so I've just been to the lumberyard and I have procured some 1.25-inch PVC pipe. Now, PVC pipe is actually measured as the inside diameter, so it's pretty much 1.5 inches on the outside, and I have just shy of 1.5 inches of gap. So I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna see if I can get this through. I have another trick up my sleeve, which I won't share with you until I really need to do it. So what I've done is I've just taken my little Olfa knife and I've kind of sharpened the end a bit, little chamfer around it. So as I run up against the various obstacles on my way through here, I'll just be able to rotate it and keep it going. Right? Okay. Let's try. All right then, so because this is at the absolute limit of even possible, I'm going to increase my chances slightly with a little bit of lubricant. Not a lot, just a little. Okay, let's see. Well, so far so good. We're past the first frame. We're past another one. So in theory, it's possible. Woohoo! How many more frames? Only gotta go 5 feet. Whoa, I'm up against something now. Okay, I'm gonna actually start hitting it. Okay, let's see how this works. Of course, every 9 inches I run into a new frame. I may have to try and rotate it, but I'm pretty sure I'm at the point where I can't turn this anymore. Oh. Of course, there's the great risk that I fail at this and this becomes a permanent fixture in behind. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, the likelihood of this actually emerging through the hole at the other end is pretty remote. I'll go down there and try to align it as everything happens, but the truth is, even if it comes close to the hole, it's succeeded as a conduit. I'm feeling pretty good. 18 inches? I can do 18 inches. Come on. This is very exciting. Ah, that suddenly got quite hard, but you know what? Let's go for a walk. Can you see I'm excited? Okay, we're gonna need some light in here. What do we got there? Ha folks! Will you look at that? No, I didn't think it was gonna go that well. Let's drill some more holes and put another pipe through. There we go. A little tidier hole this time. Okay, and here we go. I've cut the chamfer on this one as well. We'll load it up with a little soap right at the start. Keep the soap going. This one seems to be quite a bit easier. Don't speak too soon, Peter. Oh my gosh. Yep, I expected that. I can tell you I am really pleased with that. I did not expect that to go as easily as it did. Whew. Now, truth is, not a very large conduit. Some of you are wondering why I didn't actually just use electrical conduit. Well, my local hardware store doesn't have 1.25 inch available, so it just, I mean, I'm talking that just fit. Now, if you're curious about what my backup plan was, I thought if it doesn't quite fit, I'll heat it and squish it into an oval, the full length of it. Somehow, I don't know how I was going to do it. Good thing I didn't have to. Yes! Well, after that great success, it is awfully tempting to carry on and drill the 2 holes here into the forecastle. But you know what? It's a little more complicated because I have to make sure that they arrive in exactly the right spot in here, and I can't quite tell where that is just yet until I start to build the actual panel. So I think it's time to get on with that. Okay, so I have this lovely piece of sapele plywood. Now this is not marine grade plywood, it's cabinet grade, which is really good, but not necessarily for locations that's going to get chronically wet. And yes, I'm going to use this for the inside panel of the electrical panel. In other words, where all the, mostly the bus bars go and the basic wiring distribution. So let's just cut it to size. I need 24 by 18. I think I'm going to cut this from the back side, because my blade is in good shape but not perfect. 24, 18, oh, it's only 17. Oh well, that's what it's going to be. 17.25. Perfect. Okay, that'll be perfect. Let's give it a little scuff up. And I think varathane will be a perfectly suitable finish for this. I am going to varnish the end grain, but not the back side. More on that later. Okay then, I've had an awful lot of questions about whether or not I'm going to seal the edges and the bottom of the plywood used here in the sole. And I have a very firm belief on this, but I'm prepared to be educated if there's someone out there who would like to do that. My belief is wood should not be encapsulated on all sides, ever. And the reason I believe that is because no matter what you do to seal up a piece of wood, moisture is going to get in. It just is. And once it's in, if you've sealed it on all sides, it's going to have a heck of a time getting out again, thus promoting the dreaded rot. However, wood can get wet. It can get wet for a brief period, and it can handle a brief amount of moisture. So I believe that wood should always be treated on the side that is going to be most prone to picking up wood. In this case, the top surface where I'm going to spill my G&T, or let's say on the boat, on the hull on the outside, the paint on the outside. But I think that the opposite side should always be open to the air, even if there's a chance of humidity there, because with good ventilation on the whole, the wood will stay drier by releasing that humidity out of the bottom of the wood, rather than if I'd sealed it all up and if moisture gets in, it will be in there forever. Just the way I think about it, but at least it explains it in full. Well, hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week. What a gorgeous, gorgeous day it is here in Victoria. All the better to share a beer with you. Now, this is from my local pub just down the path here, Spinnaker's, and they call it their wee heavy Scotch ale. And this is a beer that is not available at the pub on tap, so I'm quite curious to try it. I am a little leery of heavy ales. In fact, that's strange for me to say because I used to really love them, but these days it doesn't seem to be so great for me. So let's have a look at the wee heavy Scotch ale from Spinnaker's. I love the color of it, looking absolutely fantastic. Let's see if I can put a little head on the end there without having an accident. Well, obviously this is not going to give me any trouble. Cheers. Whoa, I wish they had this on tap. Okay, that is really great. Really great. Caramelly, rich, not like a nut brown though, sort of a, because it's an ale, it's sharper, it's not, ooh, I love it, I love it. Ooh, I'm gonna learn a little more about beer, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Anyway, let's get going. First off, got to congratulate John Winslow, who was last week's t-shirt winner of the week. Thanks so much, John. Congratulations, John. Thanks as well, and we'll get in touch and make sure you get your shirt. Cheers, John. So grateful for 3 new Patreons that came on in the last week. And they are Dan Fendel, Al Diem, and Brian Bassel. Thanks so much to all 3 of you. I'm so grateful. Thanks again. And the bilge pump is running there for a second. And on PayPal, I want to extend some ongoing thanks to an ongoing supporter, and that's Paul Buidling, who is always there for me. Thanks ever so much, Paul. Cheers. Okay, now we're gonna have some fun. You gotta see this thing. This is known as a demolition screwdriver. It's Klein, which is my favorite screwdriver company, and it's just a heavy duty standard screwdriver. Now it's referred to a demolition screwdriver because they know you're gonna take this and you're gonna abuse it. You're gonna put it up against something and you're gonna give it a schwack with your hammer. So they put this huge steel plate on the butt end of it. A standard Klein screwdriver does not have that, and if you pound on that, you're gonna make a mess of it. So once they did this, they said, we're gonna call this the demolition screwdriver, and they're bloody handy. I've had several. I tend to leave them inside walls of houses. Anyway, this has been a gift off the Amazon wish list from Mark Haynes. Thank you so much, Mark. And this is gonna be super, super handy, and yes, I'll be abusing it, no doubt. So, thank you so much, Mark. And cheers. Now, one more little bit of housekeeping. You may have noticed, if you've been watching before, that this week's episode has new graphics in the intro. Well, I have been blessed with the kind generosity of a fellow who is a graphic artist and who has been kind enough to create a whole bunch of new graphics for Travels with Geordie. Much of it will very soon appear in new t-shirts and such. So this is really, really exciting for me. It's been wonderful to collaborate with him on this project, and I hope I can share more of his fantastic stuff with you shortly. So thanks again, and I'm really, really grateful for that. All you need now is a word of the week, and it took me about 1/10 of a second to think of this because of the gratitude I have for these new graphics, as well as all these people that come aboard. I'm sure I've used the word before, but I just feel such a sense of community. So the word of the week this week is community. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, simply use the word community in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random over the first week or so's worth of comments. And if I pick you, you get a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Cheers, see you next week.